but after doing this and a lot of these interviews, and dude, it's just so fucking dark, man. It's I don't know. It makes me wonder, like, are we here for a bigger purpose, or is our purpose just to, you said lead by sacrifice. I think lead by example. Just set the fucking good example, and just be a good person. And what is it? Attraction works a lot better than promotion.
Definitely.
And that's what my wife tells me. But
But there's a cost to that. That's what I would say the main thing that I have learned, having been around, the same world that I'm around now. I've been around since I was a child, and it slowly dawned on me how rotten it was. And so the main pitfall for me is being shocked by everything. I'm like, I can't believe how bad this is. I can't believe how corrupt this institution is. These people are. I can't believe how dark it is. I must say that 100 times. I can't believe it. And then occasionally I'll hear myself and I'll be like, you become the I can't believe it guy? Really? Are you shocked again? Like, how many times? This is Lucy in the football. Like, how often are you going to be shocked by what you already know, by what you've stated out loud 1,000 times? So if you keep doing the same thing to me and I keep refusing to believe you're going to do it, and if I find myself shocked every time when you do it, who's the asshole?
I don't know. I mean, I think when you say it, you know what I mean? That you like when you say, I can't believe, I think I think the reason that happens is there's still a glimmer of hope in your mind that it actually is not as fucking bad as it appears to be.
Of course it is.
And then every time you go down the rabbit hole more and more and more.
We dropped atom bombs on civilians and celebrated it. Oh, it was so important we do that. Really? To incinerate a bunch of kids? Like, if you say it's important to beat the Imperial Japanese army or replace the government with a friendly government, of course. But if you're celebrating the incineration of children, then you're evil. And all of us were, including me. So, like, it's just important to recognize that and just be like, wow, we made a huge mistake. But people who refuse to acknowledge the mistake and continue to behave like that was a virtue are serving evil. That's just what it is. Like, that's what the whole project is. Like, and they'll employ any lie to get you not to. You hate the United States. I hate the United States? I don't think I do. No, give my life for the country in a second. I feel like we're actually in the process of doing that, giving over things that we love because we care about this land and its people, because this is where we're from. You're not going to get me off the track, but you're also not going to get me to lie. So what happens if you decide I'm just going to tell the truth? You have to tell the whole truth about everything all the time. You don't. You're not required to do that. But I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to tell the truth. We're definitely going to get killed if you keep doing that, because whether it's physically or in some way, you are going to suffer. And that's the whole story. That's a story of Jesus. That's a story of his disciples. Maybe every one of whom was murdered in the end. Why? Because they were hurting people or stealing from the poor? No, because they were telling the truth. So we already know that. So I don't know why every single time, I get attacked or I see people unfairly attacked for doing the right thing and telling the truth. And every single time I'm like, I can't, this is shocking. It's like, really? I guess I didn't really believe anything I said, because there's nothing shocking about it. It's the most predictable. I remember going on Fox and writing the script and something, I can't even remember, could be anything, but I was like, it's kind of weird that all the people who lied are getting presidential medals of freedom and consulting contracts at BlackRock, and all the people who told the truth are headed to jail. We're punishing the honest. I remember being like totally out. I mean, this was like 10 years ago I said this. And yet every single time I've seen it in the subsequent decade, I've been every bit as shocked. And I just think, no, it's time to acknowledge what's totally real. Charlie Kirk got murdered. No one was more shocked than I was. He and I had just talked about the possibility of me getting murdered. Oh, I'm not worried about that. I said, and then he gets murdered. And I was so shocked and of course upset because of him specifically dying, but shocked that someone could get killed who didn't do anything wrong. He just told the truth. And he was increasingly telling more of the truth, which is exactly why he was murdered, obviously. But I remember being shocked at that. And I was like, no. And I talked to our staff about it, and we've had some, real drama in our lives. We were totally shocked by it. And similar, people trying to kill you. And I remember finally concluding and saying to them, and they agreed, it's like, what did you think this was? That's what this is. That's what our lives are. That's what everyone's life is. And we've gotten to the point where you can't opt out. You can't just say, I'm going to my fishing camp with the spaniels. I tried. There is no opting out. And anyway, and people can reach different conclusions about what their role is. And I think everyone has a different role. Not everyone has the same role at all. Not everyone has the same destiny or mission, but we're all going to have to face that choice because it's not up to us. That's the nature of life. So I don't care what happens. I am resolving, I'm not going to be shocked by it. And the extent to which you're shocked is the extent to which you didn't really believe what you were saying before. And now, finally, after all these years at 56, I really believe that what we're seeing is what we always thought we would see. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense.
You can't shirk
it. You've been in it for a lot longer. You've been in it for a long time. You've been close.
Yeah, but I didn't see it. I mean, and I've been so attacked. Like, how could you have not known that this person was doing this? Or in my own family, even especially. Oh, you're lying. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. The human mind is amazing. The number of things. I mean, I've smoked a lot of cigarettes and thought to myself, this is bad for you. That's bullshit. It's like, oh, whatever, And like, we have the capacity for self-deception that really is without parallel. Like, it's incredible what we can ignore. And I've done my share for sure, and I'm not being defensive about it. I just think that's how people are. It's certainly how I am. I'm very good at lying to myself, but especially about people I like and about myself. And, we're just good at deceiving ourselves. But once it's only been in the last 10 years, I was like, wow, I can't believe that all this stuff was going on. And then I'm transitioning into the next phase, which is, it's okay. We were promised this. We're getting it. I'm so grateful really to be living in a time where I think there's less self-deception. I think people are being forced to acknowledge, not hysterical, but being forced to think about, like, why am I here? And what is this? And what do I care about? What do I actually believe as distinct from what do I profess? They're not the same. And I think there's like amazing clarity. And there's, of course, a great sorting going on, which you and I have talked about off camera for sure, maybe on camera, but the beauty of, you lose so many friends. I've lost, most of my friends. But the ones I've kept are real friends, and they're just people I respect immensely. And then I've made all these new relationships. Like, I pride myself in having no new friendships. Like, I have no new friendships, I married my high school girlfriend. Like, I'm very much old school that way, the most. But it's also true that in the past 5 or 10 years, I've met all these people I trust, care about, listen to, whose opinions I really listen to and that affect me. I allow their opinions to affect me, which is the sign of real friendship. I let you critique me and I'll hear it. And I have a bunch of people I feel that way about. How great is that? So I lost a lot of, acquaintanceships and I gained some real friendships. How's that not a massive win? It is a massive win.
That's awesome.
Do you feel that?
No.
You will. I think you will. Your problem is this is so fast.
I'm extremely guarded. I've been fucked over a lot.
Yep.
Been lied to a lot. And it's really, really, really fucking hard to gain my trust.
I get it. I get it. But the trajectory of your life has been so radical and abrupt. Like, go from, the height of one world, like military, you got to the height, obviously, the most famous part of the military, succeed in that. And then you completely change careers. Like, it couldn't be more different from what you did before. And then out of nowhere, you become really successful in that. So that's a big, very abrupt change. And no matter how resilient you are, there are going to be some bumps on that road because it's just too different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I became like a super successful business guy or figure skater tomorrow, that would kind of be like, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, I'm competing in the Olympics for figure skating and I win the gold medal. Like that would be very hard for me.
Oh shit! I would actually love to see that. We might have to create an AI video of you figure
in the
skating.
comedy division, but yeah, but that is kind of like your life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't see it clearly because you're living it, but from the outside, it's obvious. Like, what? You actually succeeded in this new business? What are the odds of that?
I don't know, slim to none.
Closer to none, I would say.
Yeah. We track sleep, fine-tune our macros, and try to chase every biohack. But real performance starts deep, at the cellular level. Armora colostrum is nature's original superfood. Colostrum is packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that help fortify gut health, help strengthen immune health, help fuel performance, and more. Let's face it, today's world throws a lot at your body. Toxins, processed foods, stress, and immune disruptors are everywhere. That's why I started using Armora colostrum, and I feel lighter, clearer, and better than ever. Whether you're chasing a finish line, rebalancing your wellness, or aiming to feel amazing, Armora colostrum helps you operate at your highest level because your body deserves the same optimization as your lifestyle. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armora.com/SRS or enter SRS to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/SRS. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. These statements and information are not a substitute for or alternative to seeking care from your healthcare providers. You know what really bothers me is before I dug into this, it's like there's some things that are fucked up. We're going to expose it. We're going to make some changes. And then the deeper you get in and the more you look around, everything's fucked up. It's like, it's like what we were talking about on your show. Everything is a lie. And I mean, we manufacture fake fucking heroes in the military that even I believed went through what they said went through. You know what I mean? And only to find out if like 20 fucking years later, like, holy shit, this entire fucking story is a lie. This is a fucking lie. And that motherfucker is running around I mean, I can't even imagine the prison that people live in, living a lot. Like, everything that you're known for is a fucking lie. Everything that people come up to you for and praise you about is a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Your awards are lies. Everything is a fucking lie. You are a. And this is a lot. There's a lot of these people walking around, and I just know a handful of them. And then you look at the politics, and look at this shit, the Epstein files. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. It's a national security threat. They're fake. This is like, what the fuck, man? The American people are fucking screaming at you, screaming that they want this shit released. Yeah. Congress, I don't even know the number. What is it like? I can't remember. How many people are in Congress?
535 Senate plus House. 435 in the House.
Everybody except one person.
Yep.
I don't know who is the one person.
Some guy.
Yeah, but and so like back to earlier, like we want to make an impact. We want to tell the truth. We want to do these, and we had a big influence in the last election. Seemed like a great
Did
thing
it matter?
at a time. At the time, it felt great. Was that a good thing?
You can't.
Now we got a guy who's, America first, all this other fucking bullshit. And everybody is screaming, release these fucking files. We want to know what is going on. We want to know.
What would we find out if they were all released? Anything we didn't know?
Honestly, I have no idea. Is it the end of the fucking country? Like, is it really that bad?
C.S. Lewis has this. Well, I have tons of opinions on the subject. I don't have, concrete proof. But of course, I think I know. But C.S. Lewis has this. I think it was C.S. Lewis has this essay in which he says, people debate, was Jesus really God or whatever? If Jesus came back to Earth tomorrow and held a press conference, like a week later, people would be talking about something else. It's like, we actually know what's true. We know what's true. And the way that dogs know what's true, you can't reason with a dog. The dog can smell it. And he sticks with his opinion because he has no other input. If you hate a dog, you can't talk your way out of it. The dog knows you hate the dog because dogs have unerring instincts, and so do we. And so, of course, we know exactly what the Epstein story is about. It's about the deep corruption of global leadership, of course. And you can say it's about Israel, it's about the CIA. Well, is there a distinction, really? Not just between Israel and, Mossad and CIA, but about the British government or really kind of any government or any, Bill Gates or Leon Black. It's all kind of varieties of the same thing. It's corrupt leadership that is acting on its own behalf against the interests of the people they lead. It's the oldest story there is. It's the Pharisees. And if we're honest, we already know that. So, I'm completely for disclosure of everything, but I don't lie to myself and say that disclosure would change human nature, because it won't. And people have an opportunity to exploit others, generally will. And the rest of us need to fight daily against that, not because we're going to win in the short term, but because it is our duty and to serve what's good and true, period, even if we're killed doing it. So I don't know. I won't stop pushing for disclosure. I really believe that. Trust is built on honesty. It's not built on lies, ever.
You say, does it change? I can't remember your exact verbiage, but we were talking about, when this gets exposed, does it change anything? No, this is the nature of man. This is what happens. But
we already know the answer.
Men need to be reset. And men have not been fucking reset, not in this country, for a long time.
That's coming, whether we want it or not. We don't want it, but it's coming.
And
all this shit about women don't need men. You've obviously seen chaos in a society, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like actual chaos. People just shoot into buildings and no one arrests them. Mm-hmm. You spent your life around that stuff. Those societies don't ask questions like, what are men for? You know what I mean? Right. And we're, of course, moving closer to that. And all of this, all of our silliest manifestations, the trans craziness or feminism or other just revolts against nature, are only possible because we live in this nerf world of affluence. But as that starts to change, and it is changing, then the upside of that, we're going to get poorer and the society will become more dangerous, but we'll also be a little more rooted in reality. In the same way that rich people are insufferable, not all, but a lot of rich people are insufferable because they're detached from reality, from nature, from God, from the things that are real, and they convince themselves, because they can fly from point to point without going through TSA, that they have infinite power, and they don't, and that's why they're so hard to have dinner with. But a normal society doesn't have these problems. It has all kinds of other problems, but it doesn't have the American problems of I'm a 40-year-old unmarried Citibank executive, I'll just get a surrogate. It's okay. Or the suicide rate. There's not a lot of suicide in, impoverished countries, because the mission is really clear: eat. There's not a lot of crisis of meaning in Burundi. You know what I mean?
It's a fight for the day.
Yeah, it's a fight for the day. Well, it's a trade-off. I would much rather live in a DoorDash society because I like comfort and ease and everything, but it is a trade-off, and you trade comfort for meaning. That's just kind of what we've done, and we shouldn't be surprised by it.
What do you think happens, honestly? If this, do you think this is actually is this gonna come out?
The
Or
Epstein,
has it all been shredded? I mean, Mark
I
Epstein
don't.
said this
No,
is,
of course. I mean, we don't have the JFK files,
mm-hmm.
and so then you ask, like, why don't we? Who is being protected here? There are no living stakeholders in that story. There's no living participant in that murder conspiracy. It was a conspiracy. We know that. So who were the participants in that conspiracy? Well, no one's still alive. So who could we possibly be protecting by not releasing all of those files? And that's a pretty short list of suspects. So I think we kind of know what that is, at least in part. I don't know the details. I know some, but I think it's pretty obvious. Same with Epstein. It's pretty clear who some of the players were. They were governments, the U.S. government involved, British government involved, Israeli government involved at various levels. The guy lived a fairly long life. He died in his mid-60s. He was pretty active in government work, arms trading, for example, from a young age, from his late 20s, I think, when he left Bear Stearns. He got into that business with Robert Maxwell. You don't trade arms by yourself. You do it on behalf of governments and with the assistance of governments. Obviously, you've been around this, So from that age, from say 30 to 65-ish when he died, so 35 years, he's intersecting with governments. It's not just the Israelis. I mean, the Israelis were definitely involved. Ehud Barak is living at his house. I mean, okay. And we have a lot of his emails that prove that, and I'm not defending the Israeli government, which is hard to defend, but I'm just trying to tell the truth, which is it's not just the Israelis. Okay. It's us. It's the British, the French. It's the usual players, the intel services that matter in the West and probably others. So that's who's being protected, of course, and then all kinds of other pawns. And so I think one of the main takeaways from that story, about which I know a lot, but not everything, is that the leaders that we believe are leaders, and people are starting to get this, like our elected officials, they have so much power, Senator so-and-so, President, what's his name? Like these are the people running our society, are not the people running our society. Of course, they themselves are subject to enormous pressures from, other people and coalitions of people and forces and interests. And like, that's what and the closer you get to them, the more time you spend with the people who are in charge, the more you realize they're not really in charge, or they're only semi in charge.
How does it happen? I'm very, how does it happen? We talked about this a little bit at breakfast. I don't think everything is transactional as it may seem.
Oh no.
I think that this is from my own experience, and I don't believe I've fallen into any yet, but I think I have come close. I think they set traps, and that doesn't mean there's a hooker in the fucking hotel room that you walk into.
Though there is sometimes.
You know what I mean?
There is sometimes.
For somebody that fucking weak,
you'd have to.
That would
and stupid, great, by the way.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are that fucking stupid.
Or the porn sites. I'm gonna look up tranny porn on YouPorn. Well, that's not controlled by a foreign intel service. Oh, it is. It is. That actually is true. So, yeah, I mean, there are a million ways that your weaknesses expose you to influence, for sure.
I think they can be very giving, and I think they can be very giving, and it appears that you're being led into a group, and then.
Oh, I'm watching that right now with someone, yes.
And then you're fucking done.
Of course.
But not even realizing it until you're in.
Oh, yes.
And I think I've come close, and I always, like, if I even get a fucking inkling of that happening, I'm like, nope, done, not going, not getting on the jet.
Stay true to that.
Not going there, not going there, not doing it. Like, I'm my own fucking person, and I don't, what are you going to give me, money? I've got that.
Or how about when
it's not all it's cracked up to be?
You don't even know what's happening. I mean, how many plots have I been involved in unwittingly? I don't even know the answer, but a lot. I can think of a bunch of them where you have someone like who you work for being like, we should really take a look at this. This guy's bad. Let's you know? Okay. When I was young, living in Washington, I was used all the time and had no idea. I literally had it never even occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my resentment as a middle-aged man comes from that. And I think a lot about it. And I'm not going to blame the people who did it because that's who they are. But I definitely participated in a lot of stuff without my knowledge that was much more strategic than I ever guessed. You're sitting in a meeting, we should really do this. Okay, I'll do it. And you wind up doing it, and then ultimately became inconsistent with my instincts and my conscience. And I was like, this is bad. I'm not quite sure how. But then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh. And now, of course, my whole life is, I don't understand anything really, but you see glimpses of a lot of different things every single day. Well, you should go here and talk to so-and-so. And like, what is this exactly? And if you're busy, you don't ask yourself enough, what is this? I mean, I think that happens to me every single day because my text is public. So everyone has my text. Everybody has my text. I've had the same number for 30 years. I'm not changing it. I just refuse. I'm not afraid of people, and I'm not going to change my number. And so I get hundreds and hundreds of texts every day. Some for people I know, most of the people I do know. And, some of them are totally straightforward and people I trust, and a lot of them aren't. And sometimes I don't care what plot you're hatching. I want to do this thing because I have my own agenda, which is to shed light on something that isn't well known enough. This is my perspective, and I'm going to do it. I don't care whether it fits into your plans or not. I'm doing it. I've done a lot of interviews, and traveled to a lot of countries with that in mind. But yeah, there are tons of people trying to suborn you and make you part of their agenda. And mostly it's not blackmail. I've never been blackmailed in my life. No one's ever suggested that. I'm not banging the hooker in my room. Sorry, I don't drink. I mean, it's like kind of hard to blackmail me. I like to think it's impossible. Maybe they could find a way, but that's not how it happens for most people. But then there's another element, which I'm thinking a lot about, which I don't really understand, but I know is real, where people fall under a kind of spell.
Mm-hmm.
And people to be rational, Mike Huckabee is one of them. We were talking about this at breakfast because I'm obsessed with it because I know Mike Huckabee so well. I was at the newspaper in Arkansas over 30 years ago, and I knew him then. I wound up at Fox News with him decades later. I worked with him. I knew him then. I always liked Mike Huckabee. I like him now. Mike Huckabee is not a bad person. He's very money-oriented, which is a weakness for anybody, of course. So there's that, but that's not unusual. He's not a bad person at all. Mike Huckabee's a nice man. But Mike Huckabee has participated in things that are just objectively evil, in my opinion. And how did that happen? Because Mike Huckabee woke up and decided he wanted to do something evil? No, I know Mike Huckabee. He doesn't feel that way at all. He's a decent man. I watch Huckabee, and because I do know him, I marvel at it. He has fallen under some sort of spell. I do think it's supernatural. I know a number of people like that. I'm calling him out by name because he's been involved in something recently that's like so shocking to me that I can't even believe he participated in something like that. But
He said we wouldn't be shocked anymore.
Exactly. We wouldn't be shocked anymore. So everything that I have learned comes from like sitting in my sauna trying to figure out obvious things. Complex things are very easy to understand. Simple things right in front of your face are the great mysteries. And when you know people and you have a fairly good sense of their character and their, what they're, the kind of things they'd be willing to do, what their goals are. I think Mike Huckabee's goal is to spread the gospel of Jesus. And I think that about him. I do. I think a lot of Mike Huckabee. How could a man like that wind up doing the things that he's been doing? Not creepy personal things, nothing like that, but like promoting things that are like obviously evil, like the murder of kids. Like, how could you do that? Well, he couldn't do that. He would never do that. He's doing it because he is under some kind of spell. He has no idea he's doing it. And I just explained a time in my life where I was under a kind of spell. It never even occurred to me. I worked for Bill Kristol at the time. That Bill Kristol, my editor, my boss, who gave me this job, was like hilarious in meetings that he could really be working tirelessly on an agenda that was like totally anti-Christian. How could that ever be? That what Bill Kristol really hates is Christianity. That never occurred to me. And he wanted to stamp out nationalism and, public displays of loyalty to Jesus. Like, he hated that. I did not get that at all. It never occurred, never entered my brain one time. So I was under a spell myself. So I'm not even judging. I'm just saying people fall into this way of thinking that is so clear to me, influenced by supernatural forces, where they are blinded. And the entire Bible, from beginning to end, is the story of people who can't see things right in front of them. They just can't. It's happening right there. So all this evidence, it's overwhelming. They can touch it, smell it, feel it, but they cannot acknowledge its reality. And so anyway, that's part of it. People are engaged in these projects that are just like totally anti-human, and they think they're on the right side. They really believe it. So I would just say, like, the analysis of that I read on the internet, I try to not read the internet, but you read it and you're like, people of good faith are like, wow, that person's clearly getting a payoff, or, they've got videotape of him banging a dog or whatever. They come up with these ideas. You know what I mean? They're compromised. And I think because I know so many of the people they're talking about, I'm like, yeah, in some Lindsey Graham, like, okay, I believe that. Like, what is that? But there are a million other people who I'm like, I don't think there's videotape of them doing anything wrong. I don't think they're taking money for this. I think they really believe they're doing the right thing. And that's more upsetting to me because it's more subtle and it's more profound than just blackmail. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And looking back on your life, I mean, it's hard for any of us to look back on our lives without feeling very complicated feelings, but do you detect any moments where, like, you were involved in something and you never even paused to ask, like, what is this? Why am I participating in this? It never even dawned on you.
I mean, I think you just have to, I mean, when I started doing this, there's all kinds of, I've got all kinds of incriminating shit out there. Tons of it, but and I'm aware of it, and I know it was fucked up, that what I did.
Yeah.
But, I'm not,
but did you know it at the time?
Reconciliation. Yeah, I knew it was fucked up at the time. Not all of it, but yeah, the majority of it. Like, I mean, I didn't fall into any honeypots. I didn't need a honeypot.
That's the point. That's
too obvious.
That's too obvious. They're never going to get you with the Russian hooker because everyone's on guard against the Russian hooker.
They didn't need to do anything to get me to fall into anything because I was already doing it all. And there's this thing, called reconciliation, confession, whatever you want to call it. You come clean and you fucking own it. Jocko calls it extreme ownership, right? But I mean, it's taking ownership of your fuck ups, and like, you cannot be afraid of that. And I tend to think that people are very forgiving, and so I don't know, when we talk about shit like the Epstein and all of this stuff, right? Like, when we talk about all of these things and all of the blackmail and stuff, it's like, just come clean, man.
I've made this argument
just get ahead of it
times. Everyone wants to believe in our institutions. I certainly feel that way, as disappointed and angry as I am about the failure of every institution. I really want to believe in the institutions. I really, really do. I mean that. And all it takes to restore a relationship with a person or an institution is honesty and repentance. That's it. It's like not hard. People are so forgiving. I totally agree with that. All of us want to forgive. There's nothing better than the prodigal son. Like, he's gone. Fuck that guy. He took all the money and left. He's, in whorehouses in Babylon, but now he's here. It's all forgiven. We're so excited for you. We're throwing a huge party for you. All of us feel that way. And so I don't think it's hard. Or it's hard, but it's not complicated. And it's so worth it to say, I was completely wrong. I'll be wrong again. I'm going to try my best. Maybe sometimes I won't try my best, but just be honest. I think that's liberation. That's the only liberation, actually.
It's freeing. I mean,
yeah. What other liberation is there?
Does voting matter anymore?
I don't know. I don't know whether voting
confused me
matters.
so much. Like, looking back, I mean, we didn't really have much of a fucking option here, but I mean, we so we thought. But nothing I voted for happened. What about you? Are you happy with anything
Oh, I'm happy with so much.
that's going on?
Of course not.
within
No,
politics?
it's just a nightmare of depravity and corruption in general in the world, but what you expect. I am so struck by, I'm not a TV watch, but there's the only really famous Seinfeld episode is Opposite Day. You're probably in the jungle or doing something bad somewhere. You missed this, but there's this famous episode of the sitcom Seinfeld where one of the characters decides to do everything the opposite that day and gets like results he didn't expect. It works. And I just feel like that is the lesson of everything. That's the lesson of life. That's the Beatitudes. The first will be last. The meek shall inherit the earth. What's that? It's the opposite of what you think. Jesus says, I'm going to build my church on this rock. Peter, who's just betrayed him 3 times to a girl. Rock? That's like Jello. It's the opposite. If you're going to build a church, you build it on the strongest man. He builds it on the weakest man. And everything in our life points to the same truth. It's the opposite of what you expect every freaking time. And so, again, back to the same theme. No, I'm not shocked. But it really makes me happy to know the only thing that matters is the words you speak and that they're true. That's the only thing that changes history ever. You think about the number of wars, some of which you've participated in directly over the past 25 years. How many have made things better or changed anything? I'm really doing the math, is 0. How many wars actually do? It's the biggest war in human history, 1914 to 1918. Set the stage for the even bigger war in history. So it's like, but what does make things better? Telling the truth. In the end, when everything is gone, when your civilization has been leveled, and archaeologists are trying to piece together, what it was all about, the only things that remain are the words that you spoke. And they're the things that change people. And this is like an ancient concept. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's, ancient cultures understood that an idea articulated emerges from the mouth of the speaker and becomes a separate living thing and lives there forever. And anyone who's argued with his wife knows that that's true. The second you say something harsh, especially if it's true, it can't be taken back, and it hangs there in the kitchen over you, overshadowing everything. So, or this last argument I'll make, the way that I understand the world is in reverse, almost like an X-ray. So I look at the people who I don't respect, who I believe have totalitarian impulses, and I try to assess what's true by what their priorities are. So your enemies are the people who want to control you and crush you and destroy your family and your nation, obviously. What do they want above all? They want to control what you say. They want to control what you say. What's the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights? The freedom of speech. What you say matters more than anything. Your words articulated out loud are living things, and they're more powerful than you are, and they live beyond you. Your grave will go unvisited. Your words will continue to reverberate through the universe. I really believe that. I know that that's true, and that's the whole story of history. There are no living ancient Hebrews. We know a lot about what they thought because they wrote it down. Their words have lived for 3,000 years. So what we say is the most important thing about us. And if we can force ourselves to tell the truth, we will change things. And by things, I mean people and their attitudes, their beliefs, their hearts. And that's all we can do. That's all we can do. And I would say if we make a little extra money on the side, we should build a fishing camp in the woods because I think that's really important. But it's not as important as, yeah, I do think that. I have all kinds of sentimental attachments. I don't really care about things that much, but I care about nature. So like that is important. But it's not important in an ultimate sense. My fishing camp will be a strip mall someday, or it'll be a lunar landscape someday. But your words will outlive you.
I love that.
I just think that's true, and no one has convinced me of that. I've been convinced of that by watching, and really I've been convinced of it by watching what the opponents of people and of civilization really care about. And the number one thing they care about is getting you to shut up. As long as you'll shut up, you can have whatever you want. And that really is the trade-off that our leaders make. It's not by doing things, it's by not saying certain things. And the ones who refuse to be told what to say are destroyed or face the threat of destruction. And you know exactly who they are. Now, what have they done exactly? Does anyone care what the 2 or 3 truth tellers in our political system have done, what they voted for, what they're... No one even knows. No one cares. All they care about is what they say out loud. And the reason they care is because that's the most important thing. They know what's important. We don't. We're totally sidetracked by this, that, baubles and fast-moving, flashy objects. But they know what's important. The spoken word is the most important. Anyway, so that makes me feel good. That makes me feel really, really good because I know what my mission is. And I feel like if you know what your mission is and you know what the stakes are and you're willing to accept them, and I should just say I'm in such an unusual position because all my kids are grown and they're all thriving and I don't have any investors or debt. No one can control me. I'm kind of happy with less. I've never been a money person. I'm not bragging, but I never have been. Ask anyone who knows me. And so the cost to me is so much lower than to a man with like 4 kids in private school. You're 35 and your wife's like, where you're barely making it. You are subject to, and I have been earlier in my life, subject to all kinds of control mechanisms you don't even perceive, but you're so afraid of losing what you have. And you're really afraid of it because you have children at home. And having small children at home who are totally dependent on you, who you love more than your own life, that is a really, really scary time for every man. And I know that you're living it now. And I've lived it. My oldest is 31 years old next week. I've lived it for 31 years, I know. But you get to a point where it's not such an imminent threat because your children have their own lives. And if you're blessed as I've been, they're doing great. You love them and you want to see your grandchildren. There's so many things you want, but you don't need any of it. And your responsibility is gone. I'm not responsible for educating someone and telling him the facts of life at dinner. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm done. So I'm just in this incredibly privileged position where the stakes are just a lot lower for me. So I can see with greater clarity, what am I doing for the back nine? And I just have such a simple understanding of that. Just tell the truth. Don't be moved from the truth. You don't have to tell the whole truth. You don't have to say everything. I know a lot of shit, or I think I know a lot of shit because that's my job. And a lot of it, I'm not sure it's true, or I don't know. Don't say everything you know. You don't have to. You don't have to tell people, oh, you're fat. You don't have that. Okay, it's probably true. You don't have to say that. You're under no obligation to say that. Your only obligation, don't ever lie. Don't allow people to make you lie. Resolve, I'll die first. I'm just telling you, die first. Not going to do that. Mm. And I think that's your duty.
Yeah, I don't know. Throughout this journey, it's just in kids, especially kids, man, it's made me really try to start honing in on things that I can actually make an impact in.
Yes.
And like we were talking about, there are things and that you can make an impact in, and we have little nuggets here and there, but I don't think fucking politics is for me. And I don't think
it's not for me either. It's not for me. I don't.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't even understand it. And I mean, you were off fighting wars. I was covering the Congress and the White House and a million elections all around I've been to every state. I know all the politicians personally. I still don't even understand the process, and I'm not interested in it. I really am not. Some consultant called me yesterday to get me to interview someone, and he's like, oh, this is Congressional District 13. This is, I don't even know what you're talking about. I just have so little interest in it, it's not interesting. And people who are really, really interested in it are damaged, I think. In general, I don't want to generalize, but overall, not a group I want to have dinner with.
Right now, America's going through a transition in the way we think about money. For years, people called Bitcoin a fad. Well, here we are in 2025, and more Americans than ever are holding Bitcoin. Wall Street's in it, Congress is talking about it, and regular folks are stacking it as part of their future. That's where today's sponsor, Gemini, comes in. They offer the only instant Bitcoin rewards credit card. Every time you buy gas, groceries, or gear, instead of collecting points you'll never use, you're earning Bitcoin. Real, hard digital money that you own. You swipe, you earn, it's yours. It's great because it's simple. No need to time the market or think about it. You just live your life. And every purchase builds a position in Bitcoin. That's real financial independence. Plus, this card has no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees. Bitcoin rewards earned and held for 1 year on the Gemini credit card have appreciated 279% on average. You're investing as you spend. Truly a no-brainer. To sign up for the Gemini credit card, head to Gemini.com/SRS and get $200 in Bitcoin when you spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. You can see if you're eligible with no impact to your credit score. Click the link or go to Gemini.com/SRS to apply and start earning instantly. See rates and fees in the description for more info or by visiting Gemini.com. You've probably seen the headlines. Another trillion added to the national debt. It's hard to even grasp the scale of it. 38 trillion in climbing. While Washington keeps kicking the can down the road, more and more everyday Americans are losing confidence in the system. That's why we're seeing record demand for gold and silver right now. It's not just everyday Americans either. Central banks across the globe are buying gold at the fastest pace in decades. That's exactly why I've partnered with the award-winning company Goldco. They specialize in helping people protect their retirement savings. They use real assets, gold and silver, and they make the process simple and transparent. Go to ShawnLikesGold.com right now to get your free 2025 gold and silver kit. You'll learn how to help safeguard what you've worked hard for. Plus, you could qualify for up to 10% in free bonus silver, one of the best deals out there. So visit ShawnLikesGold.com today. One more time, that's ShawnLikesGold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. What are you passionate about now? I mean, I'm looking for things that I can make an impact in. What is it?
Like what issues? I mean, I'm super passionate about my family. My family's so big that it's literally, I could spend all day, every day involved in family stuff. There's just so many people, and I'm the oldest male, and so it's just really involved, really very close, super close, cohesive family. Everyone's best friend. It's just so interesting, and you can just like get involved and try to help in marginal ways or whatever, or just talk to people. So I'm very interested in that. I'm interested. I have more hobbies than any person's ever had, way too many. My son's like, you should take up bow hunting. Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I need more obsessions. I don't think so. Too many rabbit holes already in my life. But what am I interested in my job? And
I mean, when you're talking about telling truth, when you're talking about, and the way I take that is exposing, shining the light in the darkness.
I'm interested in the elimination of white people.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, white people have been targeted for disappearance, and no one wants to say that because they've been bullied into not noticing or talking about it because you're like a white supremacist. Well, I'm not a white supremacist. I don't think whites are inherently superior to any other group. Mm-hmm. I don't judge how I feel about someone by his race. I never have, and I'm never going to. It's against my religion, and it's against my instinct. I believe in what people are like. But I travel a lot around the world, and I'm not an expert on the world, but I know more about it than people who don't travel a lot. And I'm leaving this week again. And one thing that I have noticed, because it's impossible not to notice, is that majority white countries are becoming non-majority white. And that's a result of policies that are deliberate, that are not popular with the populations of those countries, and that people are discouraged from noticing in it. In some places they're arrested, like in Great Britain, where I'm going on Friday. So it's like, what is that? And it's not happening in one or two, but in every single one. And what's so interesting is because no one's been allowed to talk about it, the only people who talk about it are like crazy race theorists or, prison inmates who are like, whatever, caught up in being white or something. By the way, you didn't choose to be white, okay? It's nothing you did. You didn't choose to have your eye color, your height. None of these things you can brag about because you didn't do them. They're an accident of your birth. So I've never agreed with any of that crap. But because normal people have been bullied into not noticing, the only people who ever say anything about it are people who are like obsessed with it. But it is an incredible thing that every white country on the planet, except Russia, the one everyone hates, is on the road in very short order to become completely different from what it was 50 years ago. In its population, demographically different. Is that an accident? Well, of course, it's not an accident. It's the result of a bunch of different, it's a multi-pronged strategy, clearly, to make the populations of those countries hate themselves for how they were born and accept these changes. It's been systematic. What is that? As I said, I'm not a white supremacist. By the way, I would just admit it at this point. Why do I care? I'm a white supremacist. Okay. I'm actually not. I disagree with that. Don't think that you should be obsessed with people's appearance, or the accident of their birth or their genetics. I just am opposed to all of that. Again, for the 8th time, Paul, the chief prosecutor, murderer of Christians, became the most important Christian once he met Jesus. So if you need more examples, I don't know what they could be, that people can totally change. It has nothing to do with how you're born. It's what you become. And that's my deepest belief. So if I sound defensive, it's because we have all been trained to ignore this amazing thing that's never happened before in history, where one group of people is being destroyed and of course have internalized that and are now enthusiastically participating in their own destruction and the death of an entire group of people. And it really is, like, if you go to Great Britain, it's the whites who can't wait to kill themselves. It's in Canada, same thing. They have the MAIDS program, which is state-sponsored killing of its own citizens. Physician-assisted suicide. No, it's the state encouraging people to kill themselves. And it's one of the leading causes of death in Canada is this MAIDS program.
Is this these are the machines that these...
It could be machines. It's, the state is licensed to kill its citizens. The citizen just goes in and said, I want to be killed, and they kill you. And basically for any reason, mental health problems, financial problems. A lot of poor people are just like, I feel like I'm a burden to the country. I want to go die, and the state will kill you. It's one of the leading causes of death in Canada. So the numbers came out yesterday. Well, who's doing this? So Canada is about 65% white, something like that. It's completely changed. Heavily, heavily South Asian and Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani. And lots of other peoples. It's massive immigration into Canada. But who's being killed by the state in Canada? It's like 97% legacy whites. Literally. And what the hell is that? And of course, these are people who have been told and now believe that, like, they're a burden to society. It's selfish to have children. They've been totally brainwashed into mass suicide. And of course, none of this is affecting my family. We have the opposite views. We're not proud to be white. We're not white because we chose to be white. We just happen to be born white. So it's nothing to be proud of. It's just a fact. On the other hand, targeting people on the basis of their race for destruction is the reason we say we hate the Nazis. And yet that's absolutely happening globally in every white country. Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England, the United States, and Canada. That's an accident? It's not an accident at all. And no one will say anything about it. And why wouldn't you say something? Like, what is that? By the way, if that were happening in India, Like, we got too many Indians here. 1 billion Indians? That's too many Indians. We need more Africans here. So anyone Indian, like, we can kill you because you're a burden. You just not have kids or take some SSRIs and just benzos and weed and just zone out until you die or whatever. But like, you're bad. I would be like, that's the sickest thing I've ever seen. Like, why do we hate Indians? I kind of like Indians or whatever. You would just be like, why would we want to do that to them? What did they do wrong? You know what I mean? I would just think that. And that's happening to whites globally at such a speed, and no one is saying anything about it, that I've decided, because I just want to tell the truth about what I notice, that I'm going to say something about it. I think it's totally wrong. I think it's totally evil. Again, it's exactly what we said we hated about the Nazis, and we're participating in it. And I'm going to keep saying that no matter what they say. And they'll be like, oh, you're a white supremacist. No, I'm not. And I have a lot of theories about what this is and why.
What is it? Why would they do it? Who is they?
Well, every globalist, the United Nations, the United States government, State Department, all of our politicians.
The motive.
Joe Biden's standing up and being like, the main problem in America is white racism from white men. Said that on tape many times. And I can't wait till this is a non-white majority country. What? Why would you? Okay, you could argue about whether it's better or worse as non-white. You know, okay, you could argue like the effects of it. But why would you want that? Why would you look around the country and say there's too many white people? And that's the official position of every institution in the United States. All of our schools, we give preference to non-whites, non-white males. Every single school, every single big business, every single federal contract. Institutionally, we are opposed to whites and white men. And we're so marinating in it that no one stops and says, wait, what the hell is that? Again, that's why we hated the Nazis, because they did shit like that. That's why we say segregation was wrong, which it was. That's why we hate Bull Connor. That's why we venerate Martin Luther King, because that's wrong. That way of thinking is wrong. And by the way, it doesn't matter what group is being targeted. It is wrong in an absolute sense. It's a universal principle. It's always wrong. Whether you're Pakistani or Malaysian or Indian or from Myanmar or from Minnesota, it's always wrong to hurt people or help others, to elevate some and suppress others on the basis of their race. I thought that was the basis of our common culture. Mm-hmm. And they told me it was. They put a monument on the mall to that, which I totally believe in. Judge a man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin. I grew up with that. I believe it. I believe it now. And we're doing exactly the opposite. And it's so totally pervasive, all pervasive. And nothing has been done to reverse it at all. We're mad about anti-Semitism at Harvard, but I'm against anti-Semitism completely for the same reasons. But no one's lifted a finger to address the actual problem, which is like normal middle-class white kids have no shot of going to Harvard. They're hated. The curriculum hates them officially. Here's a book saying whiteness is evil. Let's assign that. It's like, if there was a book that says Jewishness is evil, we'd be like, no. Or blackness is evil, no. So this has gone on for really since the Second World War. And I think, like so many things that are bad, and if you say that, they're like, oh, you're for Hitler. No, I'm very anti-Hitler. Hitler was anti-Christian and a murderer, destroyed his own people and lots of other peoples, including Jews. And I'm totally opposed to all of that. But it's just a fact that since the Second World War, these trends, which are now flowering, and we can see that it's the end of something, they began then. They began in 1945. What is that? And I have a lot of thoughts about that. But one is that our leaders globally in the West took away from World War II one big lesson, and that's that any white majority Christian country is a threat to world peace, to the order. You can't have a majority white Christian country because Germany, under the Nazis, was majority white Christian. Now, of course, the Nazis were not a Christian government. They were an anti-Christian government that killed a lot of priests, but whatever. That has somehow become a kind of unspoken consensus among many of our leaders. In fact, I would say almost all of our leaders. They're embarrassed of tons of white people in the same place. Look at that picture. That doesn't look like America. And none of us have ever said anything like, whoa. You're attacking people on the basis of their race? Isn't that what you say you hate, that we're all against? But you're doing it. Why don't you stop that immediately? No one has ever had the balls to say that. And so it's kind of proceeded apace, and it's become not just a consensus, but like the reason for everything. And the result of that is the total destruction of the white world. And there was a white world. There was a Chinese world to it, an Indian world, and an Arab world. There are lots of different worlds or different peoples in the country. And I know them all, and I like them all, actually, because I've been to all their countries. I've never been to a country I didn't like. I've never marinated in a culture I didn't think was interesting and kind of cool, even though it's not mine. You know, I'm the opposite of like small-minded person. I'm really for diversity, actually. I've really enjoyed it a lot. If I went, I always spend a lot of time in the Middle East, and I enjoy it because it's Middle Eastern. It's not American. So like you can love different cultures, and ask anyone who travels with me, I sincerely do, without wanting to destroy the one you grew up in. And like if other people are trying to destroy it on the basis of race, which they are, it's totally within bounds to be like, what are you doing and why? And that's what immigration is, of course. It's not an effort to make our economy better. And you see these people say, well, which is true. This is true, but you'll hear people say of mass migration, well, it's an effort for the ownership class to access cheaper labor by globalizing everything. And that, of course, as a matter of economics is absolutely true, but it's not the whole story. When you start importing people from countries that are, badly educated and socially dysfunctional and totally incompatible culturally with yours, are you really doing that so you can like reap their cheap labor? Are we importing Somalis so we can like set them to work in factories for half the rate that Native Americans? No, we're not. They're not working in factories, not working at all in a lot of cases. They're on state and federal aid. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying I'm attacking the motives of the people who imported them against the will of the American population. I mean, there was never a groundswell. Let's bring in 50 million people illegally and put them on welfare. No one ever asked for that. No one ever wanted that. So why did they do it? Well, they did it not to make the country richer. They didn't. They did it to make it non-majority white. So that is an act by definition of racial hostility, of racism. And they've never been called out on it because somehow the first thing they did was take the moral high ground and occupy it and start yelling at everybody about how they're bad, you're racist, shut up racist, shut up Nazi. And they so thoroughly intimidated the population into not saying anything that they just destroyed it. And then a lot of the whites, who are really always the ones that I blame since I am white, and you just sort of instinctively blame people who look like you, just a fact. They're always telling you, you hate the other. That's the opposite of what I've noticed about people. I feel like people are much more open-minded about the other. I've been in practically every country in the world, and people do something outrageous, and I'll be like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. I'm much less judgmental. But when someone who looks like me, who grew up in the same country I did, does something wrong, I have no grace for that person. I judge them, and it was the whites who did this. Sorry, it's just a fact. And they're the ones who get hysterical when you point it out. And when I go to the UK, which is a lot because I have family there, as I said, I'm going in 2 days, I never have been in an argument with any Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Indian and ever, or Arab in London, ever. They're always like, yeah, okay, you've got views, and they actually agree with a lot of my views, honestly. I just have noticed this, okay? It's always the rich whites who get way up in your face about it. In fact, I had a speech at a very, very famous school, one of the most famous schools in England. I had a speech on Sunday night. Someone at the school asked me to do it. Of course, I will do it for free. I was there, and so I would do it. And I just got a text saying, no, you've been canceled because they don't want you on campus because you're too dangerous. This is like a very famous white school. They're the ones who were mad. They're the ones who are touchy about it. And the reason they're mad and they're touchy is because, and this is such a familiar phenomenon, they've turned the hate against them inward on themselves. And people who hate themselves are the least trustworthy and most dangerous people in the world. If someone hates himself, he'll definitely hate you. There's just no doubt. There's no doubt. I've watched people carefully for many years, and that is the group that I fear, the people who've internalized the hate and turned it inward. And we have whole countries like that and whole leadership classes, like the very familiar image of the angry menopausal liberal politician screaming at people about their sexism and racism. What are we really looking at? We're looking at someone who hates herself, has had no leadership in her life, no security, no love, no real relationships. She's miserable, and she's turning that misery outward and projecting it on the population. And that's a lot of our leadership classes like that. Sorry for such a long answer, but I really feel it.
Wow. Where does it derive from?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and the short answer is I don't know. I'm, as I think I've made clear in our conversation, I'm much more likely now in the past couple of years to think about the spiritual dimension of
who wins
human
what
affairs.
is the motive?
Nobody wins. That's kind of what I've arrived at, is that, and that actually is what made me think more deeply about Christianity and about the spiritual realm and read the Bible. And it's really changed my life, was not because I noticed how decent Christians were to each other. I wish I could say that was true. But what changed my life was watching how American politics had changed from an argument about how best to serve the population. You had two sides, having this debate. Well, I think we should raise taxes. No, I think we should lower them. But the goal was at least purportedly the same on both sides. Like, how do we do the best job we can for the people we represent, that we lead, for our people? And that was always the conversation. You had these kind of amazing, interesting arguments. And I literally did it for a living. I was on a show called Crossfire. It was right and left, and we would debate what was best for the country. And the debates were dumb and whatever. It was cable news, so of course it was at a pretty low level. But I never one time questioned the goal was like, what's good for America? And then about 10 years ago, the nature of the debate changed. All of a sudden you had these issues that, like, immigration was one, the trans thing, the gay thing was another. And I was like, how in the world could that possibly be good for anybody? It's not good for the people you say you're for. It's not good for everyone else. Like, I see only destruction. Abolish the police or defund the police. That's one of the things that convinced me. It's like, okay, if you believe that George Floyd was beaten to death by a racist cop, he OD'd on fentanyl, but even if you believed he was beaten to death by a racist cop, and the biggest problem that black people have in America is racist cops, racist white cops making $47,000 a year, they're the problem. It's not the billionaires that are the problem. It's the union cop is the problem. Okay, all right. But even if you believe that, let's say you really believe that, and let's say, your life's goal was to help black people, which I'm not against. It's a fine goal. Help black people. How long would it take you, if you really wanted to help black people, to get to the solution, defund the police? Like, you would never arrive at that solution, because obviously defunding the police is not going to help black people or white people or Asian people or any people. It's not going to help people. Make the police better maybe, but get rid of the police? Like, how does that work? How is that possibly going to wind up improving anybody's life? And of course the answer was it can't. And it didn't. But it was never going to. So I watched that, and of course I'm opposed to it, for the normal conservative reasons. We need police. But even the fact that we were having that conversation was a signal to me that this is a very different thing than I'm used to. This is people advocating, and not just like the underclass. By the way, black people played no role in that conversation at all. No one ever asked black people what they thought. It was just like 8 of their designated representatives on MSNBC were like, I'm a black person. But no one actually asked black people what they thought, because no one cared. The point was never to make anyone's life better. It was to destroy the country and the people who live in it. It was purely destructive. I really brooded on this because I had to write the script every night. So I was like constantly in my head thinking, like, what are we watching? Don't be distracted by the bullshit. Like, what is this? And I concluded, because there was no other conclusion, that the point was destruction. That was the point. So I have always thought since I was a child that it's a binary. There are creators and destroyers. A synonym for this is good and evil. God creates, his opponents destroy. God created the earth and the heavens. His opponents destroy them. It's that simple. I mean, it's complex in many ways, but fundamentally it's that simple. It's creation, destruction. And I've always been for creation, always. I believe in procreation. I believe in impregnating women. It's awesome. I believe in building cabins. Awesome. I like to create. I like what my dogs have, puppies. So I saw this right away and I was like, this is not a political debate. This is a spiritual struggle, creation versus destruction. And that totally changed my life in every way. That really set off a chain reaction in me that changed me and changed my understanding of the world, changed my sense of my own purpose in the world.
How long have you been thinking this?
Since Memorial Day 2020.
What happened on Memorial Day in 2020?
George Floyd riots. And I'd covered, a lot of stuff and been a lot of places and seen chaos and stuff. And one thing that I have concluded that I just noticed as a kid, watch, a Katrina or in Iraq or in Pakistan where you see like things fall apart, is that everyone, is so scared of war and violence and all that stuff, but that the scare and oppression, I was always an Orwell fan. So I was like, Big Brother's the scariest thing. No, the scariest thing is chaos. Chaos is the scariest thing. Chaos. And then later in life, when I read the Old Testament, I was like, God brought order out of chaos. Of course. I didn't even know. I'm Episcopalian, so I didn't really know anything. But chaos, I just noticed it because I was in several times in the middle of what was chaos. No one in charge. Kids with rifles are in charge. And they have no goals. They have no program. There's no ideology. My whole life, I've been understanding history through the lens of ideology. There are these revolutionary peasants in Peru, and they're Sendero Luminoso, and they're revolutionary peasants in Vietnam, and they're the Viet Cong. And like everything was about like the idea. And what I didn't realize until I saw it in person was, no, it's not that. It's atavistic. It's much deeper than that. It's more primitive. It's more fundamental than that. It's the struggle in the universe is between order and chaos. And I'm on the side of order, not on the side of repression. Order is now a synonym for repression, which I hate because I believe in the human soul and the dignity of every person. But chaos is the worst thing. And I saw people in my country fomenting chaos for its own sake. I don't know if they're intentionally evil. Probably not. Most of us aren't. But they were tools of spiritual forces doing that. And I instantly recognized this was totally different from everything I've been covering and thinking about, writing about, talking about on TV for 30 years. This was a new thing. And that just changed it. When that chaos broke out in Minneapolis, I'm not from Minneapolis. I have no attachment to Minneapolis. Yes, there are a lot of Swedes in Minneapolis, or were. I think they've left. But I saw this for what it was. And I was so bothered by it that I actually went to the convenience store where George Floyd tried to pass the phony $20 bill and went to the site where he was killed and wandered all around by myself. I literally landed there, went by myself, didn't do a story on it or anything. I just want to see it. And what I saw was what I expected to see a year later. It was a year after it happened. In 2021, I went and I saw a place that had never recovered and never would recover. And that to me was proof of what I suspected, which was the point was destruction. The point was not rebirth. They always tell you it's rebirth. We need to tear it down in order to rebuild it. They never rebuild it because they don't want to, because that's not the point. And people who want to build, just go ahead and build. And people who want to destroy, go ahead and destroy. And they're in totally different camps. They're on opposing sides. It's literally that simple. Anyone who tells you we need to knock it down in order to build it again is lying to you and probably to himself. He may think that that's not his goal. His goal is to destroy. That's what they want you to be.